now we're going to solve second degree equations by completing the square. We know of a 9-step method. We're going to actually go through all these steps. Eventually we'll get so good at it we won't have to think about the steps, but for now let's try to be very careful to cover each step. So we are solving the second degree equation, x squared plus 6x equals -5. And completing the square is a long process, but it will always give us a solution. There's another way to solve this problem by factoring, but that doesn't always work. In this case it would work, but I'm trying to demonstrate a different method that will always work because you do not need to be able to factor to get this solution. Okay, let's go through the steps. The first step is to isolate the x squared and the x terms together in parentheses on the left side of the equation. Well, we'll just put parentheses around the left side and it'll be done. Parentheses x squared plus 6x equals the other side, -5. The next step is to factor the coefficient of x squared out of the parenthesis. Well, the coefficient of x squared, that's just the invisible one that's multiplying x squared. We don't need to do this step. We can skip this step because it's done. It's already been taken care of. Step 3, divide both sides by the coefficient of x squared that you just factored out. Well, we didn't factor anything out, the invisible one, so we don't need to do this step either. We get to skip step 3. It is done because there is no coefficient of x squared that we factored out. Step 4, here's a tricky part. We're going to add bracket 1/2 times the coefficient that's multiplying x, close the bracket and square it. Add that value to both sides. Okay, the coefficient of x is a number that's multiplying x. Look back at step 1. The number multiplying x is 6. So that's what we're going to add to both sides. Bracket 1/2 times 6, close the bracket and square it. And be sure to do it on both sides because we don't want to change the value of this thing. X squared plus 6x plus bracket 1/2 times 6 squared equals the other side, -5, plus 1/2 times 6 bracket squared. Step 5, simplify, but only simplify inside the bracket. Now I know you want to do more, but I'm asking you to just slow down till you get the hang of this thing. If you do that, you get x squared plus 6x plus bracket 3 squared equals -5 plus bracket 3 squared. Step 6, simplify the right-hand side. Well, we'll bring the left side down, but the right-hand side simplifies to -5 plus, let's see, 3 squared is 9. -5 plus 9, that's +4. Okay, so what we have is x squared plus 6x plus bracket 3 squared equals 4. Now comes a very mysterious step, 7. We're going to factor the left side using the formula a squared plus or minus 2 times ab plus b squared equals parenthesis a plus or minus b squared. Now you've seen this formula before, and if you're not very comfortable using formulas to factor, the idea, I'll remind you, is if we get the expression, we're working on the left side, if we get that expression to look like a squared, either the plus or the minus 2 times a times b plus b squared, then we can replace it with what it's equal to, parenthesis a plus or minus, in either case, either a plus or a minus, b parenthesis squared. So all the work we've been doing up to this point was actually done to get the left-hand side in the form of a squared plus, in this case, 2 times a times b plus b squared. And that's exactly where we're at now. If you examine it, we do have that form. So we are able, in this step 7, to replace the left side with parenthesis a plus b parenthesis squared. That was the whole point. We completed the square so we can write it as a perfect square in parentheses. Okay, so now if you are not happy using formulas, all you need to remember is what we're doing is we're taking the left side and we're replacing it with parenthesis x plus whatever's in the bracket, including the sign, and then closing the bracket, parenthesis, and squaring it, bringing down the equal sign, bringing down the right-hand side. So if you just want to remember it that way, instead of memorizing the formula, cool, go for it. Notice this is simply x plus the stuff in the bracket, including the sign, either positive or negative, close the parenthesis and square it. So if you're saying to me now, I don't believe it. I don't believe that x plus 3 parenthesis squared is the same as x squared plus 6x plus 3 squared. You don't believe it? Go ahead and FOIL the darn thing. X plus 3 times x plus 3, and you'll get exactly what we had above. Okay, that's what factoring by formula is all about. All right, so let's go ahead and finish. Now that we have an expression squared equals a number, we can go to step 8, where we're going to get rid of the square, trying to get x by itself. So we're going to take plus or minus the square root of both sides. You'll notice that plus or minus is required here because we're introducing the square root to this problem. Therefore, we have to consider both the positive and the negative square root. So that gives us on the left side just x plus 3. It obliterates the square. On the right side, it equals plus or minus the square root of 4, which is 2. Now we get x by itself to get our final answer. X equals negative 3 plus or minus the 2. Let's break this apart into two solutions. X equals negative 3 plus 2, or x equals negative 3 minus 2. The first answer gives us negative 1 for x. The second gives us negative 5. And it turns out those are both good solutions. So our set of solutions are the x values, curly set bracket, negative 1, comma, negative 5. We just list the x values. This is not an ordered pair. This is a list of x values. It's a set notation. The curly set brackets, not parentheses. It's a set of x values. Each one of those individually satisfy the given equation. So if you plugged it back in, it would make both sides equal.